going to be a lot of playtime with Gemini and even Notebook LM to kind of create a script from scratch. So we'll kind of jump in and, as always, feel free to interject whenever you'd like. So I'm recording the session and the transcript, and I'll have all of those in the drive as well at some later point. All right, so welcome back to session 3, the final session on really just using Google Apps Script to figure out what you need for automation in your district. So I'll let you take a quick look at the agenda. It's really focused mostly on digging into creating a Google Apps Script from scratch using Gemini, and then using Notebook LM to analyze your work and see if you have any major steps missing. I find it a great tool to kind of give me feedback in the work that I'm doing. So just using the chat, just if you could let me know how much experience you have with Gemini and or Notebook LM, and just post it in the chat. That would be great. So let's take a couple of minutes just to think about that and add it to the chat. Well, today, Brianna, you're going to get a little bit of experience. Right, so there are other great platforms to use besides Gemini or Notebook LM as well. If you might use ChatGPT or Claude, or there's a ton of research assistants now that you can use. And the only reason why I'm using Gemini and Notebook is because they're part of Google Workspace, and a lot of folks have access to that. All right. So folks have minimal experience or none with those from the responses that I see. So let's just dive right in. So big picture thoughts regarding this today. So I think today what I really am excited about is really using the tools in AI to kind of assist with our generation and then analysis work as well. So if I take a quick peek at using Google Apps Script and the what we're going to focus on today, it's really about creating an initial prompt. And this was my initial prompt that I put into Gemini. I basically broke it down and said I have a Google Sheet from a form. I have a Google Doc template. Here are the IDs for it. I'm going to import the data from the form into the sheet, and I need a Google Apps Script to run a mail merge, essentially. And I went through a bunch of iterations regarding this. So I got some information from Gemini initially, and it kind of went through and said, hey, here's what I'm going to do for you. And then once I had that script, I actually put data into my Google form, had it go through the spreadsheet. I ran the script and was like, well, that's not working. So I had to iterate and give it some more prompts. And I said, hey, here are all my column headers. I'm using curly braces, single braces to use that as a placeholder. And then it gave me another script addition. And then there was a permission error that I had from that. And so I just went through a series of iterations before I finally ended up with the script that actually worked for me. And so I think that today, that's kind of going to be the focal point is, hey, I want to do this, help me do it. And you're going to see that through testing that you're going to have to readjust the prompt for Gemini to get a clearer understanding of what you want to take place. So we have three basic resources that we're going to use today. One is this is the actual document that houses my complete conversation from my prompt to Gemini's response regarding that. And you can see, like, I put in my original response question, Gemini's response to that, and then this is the script version 1. So this is the first script that it gave me, and then I said, hey, here's what I'm doing here, and just went through that process with Gemini in terms of that. This is the direction that's kind of a set of print directions that really gives you explicit information about using Gemini in this process and Notebook LM. So if you wanted to get a more specific step-by-step set of instructions, that are available to you there as well. And then the last thing is really just diving into Gemini Notebook, Google Notebook LM. And we'll go through this a little bit, but there's a source documents to the side where you can add sources and discover sources on the web. It's going to give you kind of a brief outline of what it figured out in looking at the sources. You can ask questions of that as well. And then it's also going to give you a panel called Studio to the right that allows you to look at a study guide and a briefing doc and an FAQ and a timeline. And one of my favorite features is the actual podcast creator, because it lets me listen to how Notebook LM interpreted all of those different resources and source documents that I added. So you're going to you have some resources that you can utilize today. So the first thing that I think we need to do, and we can talk about it in a minute because you may have already done this, is to kind of test the script that I shared with everyone and your documents that you created, and just test it end to end. So start with the form, go to the spreadsheet, see what the Google Docs look like in the middle here, see what your PDFs look like, and then did the email get sent to the test email that you wanted to send it to. So I think that it's really about taking a little bit of time to test everything in your workflow that I just mentioned and make sure that it works end to end. And I'm going to stop sharing, and what I'll do is ask folks if you've already done this, or do you need to take some time to do this, because I don't want to waste people's time. So why don't we just come off mute and let us know if this is something that will make sense for you for the next 10 minutes.
It would for me.
That would make sense? Beautiful. Anyone else?
Yeah, it worked for me too, Jim. The only thing I did do, my document wasn't finished. So because I didn't, I kind of used your template, but then I didn't finish changing things. So it says NA, but it definitely works. Yeah.
Okay. So yours worked, Tally? Is that what you were saying?
No, I said it would be useful time for me.
Okay, perfect.
10 minutes. So
Right.
But I can move on. I do have tech support here, so it's okay.
Are you sure? Because I don't want to
Totally fine. If people are ready to move forward, that's fine.
Brianna, Justin, what are your thoughts? If you're able to provide them.
I was able to run mine. I did ask, I think it was either Gemini or another AI, I can't remember, if how to set it on add a trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I tested it at the end of last week, and it didn't work, but that's okay. And I was gonna try and take a look at why that didn't work today.
Okay, that's perfect. So why don't we do this? We'll actually move forward, and then how you want to use your time, that the big block of time that we have, because I have two big blocks of time where you can actually play around today, and how you want to utilize that is completely up to you. All right, so so when I first started using JavaScript, a couple of years ago, and AI just started to come on the scene, I would say that I was successful maybe 30 to 50% of the time with whatever information I got back from Gemini or ChatGPT. ChatGPT was definitely better in the beginning. But I got a ton of hallucinations. Like I was constantly being told that, no, it works. And I was like, no, it doesn't work. It's not, so I would go to either figure it out myself or go to GitHub or other places to kind of get some help with a script that I was working on. Now, I think I have 95 to 100% spot on app script help when I need it. So if I start it myself and then ask it for a little assistance here or there, I really get a lot of good information. I actually started from scratch, which I've never done before, and it took about 15 minutes for me to have a complete Google Apps script that ran perfectly. So my prompt that I used was, I have a Google form that collects data, and I just really mimicked exactly what we did together. I have a Google form that collects data in a Google Sheet. I want the data from the Google spreadsheet to replace data in the Google Doc template. The Google Doc template has the following Google ID. I gave it the ID. So I was very specific in my prompt, and that's really something that you'll want to think about yourself in writing your own prompt. I want you to write a Google Apps script that will create a mail merge from the spreadsheet data into the Google Doc. I would like the Google Doc files to be placed in a Google folder with the following Google ID, and the column headers for the spreadsheet are, and I gave it all of that information. And I just pasted it right into Gemini, and when I finished, it gave me a Google Apps script. And what's nice about Gemini now is it uses this canvas to put in your app script. And so my original script was 92 lines when I first put it in. When I finished, so if I go through and I look at the very last iteration, you'll see that there were over 200 lines. So it really does a good job of taking all of the kind of bumps in the road that you get and say, hey, this really didn't work the way I wanted it to. So if I look, I said, hey, like this is what I'm using for my Google Doc template, because I ran the script and it gave me no information. So I actually copied the information right from the Google Doc and pasted it in here. And then it went through and said, oh, I see you're using a different placeholder format than the script was expecting. I will update the script to match. And it went through and it generated the new script for me. And so I went through that entire process of asking for a script, getting it, testing it, finding a problem, saying, hey, here's the problem, and so on and so forth. And it went through and eventually created the script that I wanted to use. And so I think what might be a good use of your time is to actually think about a scenario, and it could just be, one or two questions that you have in a form or another idea of what you want Gemini to help automate. So you're just going to take time. I'm not going to push you into a breakout room because there's only a few of us here. But you can open up Gemini. There's a link right here in the slide deck. This little link to Gemini. You can click that, or in Google, in your Waffle, in your for Google Apps, you'll see that Gemini is listed here, and also Notebook is listed. They just added that a few weeks ago as well. So you can just go in and if you've never used Gemini, you can just go in, ask it. It's going to give you a brand new prompt here. Enter your prompt and just see what it gives you. So I would say that you can, think about creating maybe a form and link a spreadsheet to that form, and then a Google Doc if you want to have a template doc. And then say, hey, this is what I want to do. Create something for me and just see what it does. Or you can just start out, have none of that, and say, hey, what would I need to do if I wanted to accomplish creating an automatic email to anyone who emails me with a help desk ticket, or whatever you want. So you can just think about that and play around with Gemini and see what it gives you. And so I think that taking the next 20 minutes or so to play around with that might be a good way of using some of your time. What questions do you have before you just start playing? Does that make sense to folks?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes, and I'll probably check in about halfway there to see how people are mucking around. And if you have any questions, feel free to come off mute and ask your question or post it in the chat. All right, why don't we come back together? And does anyone want to describe the automation process they were trying to solve? And how it was? How did it go?
Okay, I'll start. So
Okay.
it was kind of piggybacking on sort of what our PD sort of email and document was going to generate.
Yeah.
But I had the idea of taking it like a little step further. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a form that would ask my teachers what their top 3 favorite apps were that they use in class. And so I wanted to generate, a document that had their top 3 favorites that they responded with. But I also wanted to have a couple of other fields that sort of summarize the popularity of other people's responses, so that they may see what other people chose as sort of their top 3 apps, to see if they're, that could be helpful because they might, not know about an app that their peers are using that could be, really helpful or really popular. So that was sort of like the big idea that I had. And then, certainly you have to be very diligent about, forming your query to Gemini. But it came back to me and highlighted the fact that, I had forgotten to turn on collect email addresses during responses. So it sort of like proactively sort of told me that, I needed to, to do that task. I added some fields and I asked it to sort of regenerate the script. and it said, "Oh, you're good." It's already sort of like dynamically,
Yeah.
like, sort of changing to accommodate like new questions and stuff like that. And I thought that was like super helpful.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely having sort of like that knowledge at your fingertips is just pretty crazy. That's as far as I got.
Yeah.
But I'm getting
Yeah.
there.
And I originally so now when I'm using scripts, I do use some of the dynamic ability of Google Apps Script to just read basically the spreadsheet, right? And just do what it needs to do versus using the placeholders the way I generated the original Google Apps Script. But I wanted you to see how that really got generated using the columns in the spreadsheet to the columns in the doc, whereas definitely there are methods now that use dynamic scripting for that. So and in fact, the script that Gemini generated for me, replicating the entire process that we kind of went through, really gave me the dynamic scripting, which is perfect, right? Because it doesn't count on, I don't have to be as specific and start with everything the way I wanted it to be. I could continually add on to it, which is perfect. Yeah, that's great. You know what I was thinking too, Justin? It would be great to add on to it for essentially to ask Gemini to create a query to analyze the data and create a chart, and then automatically post that chart to an internal web page, right? So it could be just a Google site that actually is just limited to teachers in your district, so they can see that data kind of being pushed out.
Either using sort of a dashboard like with BigQuery, or
Right.
I had the idea that if this would generate that chart that you just said in their document. And so it wouldn't be something where this particular thing would run on form submit, because you wouldn't necessarily have all the data from the other respondents. But basically, after like a day's worth of collecting or something, you could, run the script. And if it was able to populate a chart, a pie chart that showed like the top 3 stuff, that would be a neat visual to have.
Perfect. Great idea. Brianna, I love what you did. Do you want to explain what you did? Or just want to leave it in the chat?
Yeah, I had Gemini put that lock, because we often have a cap on how many people can attend an event.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's an in-person event, we also want an attendance sheet so we can see who actually came on the day of versus who just said they were going to come.
Perfect. Love that. Love that idea. Excellent. Anyone else want to share before we move on? And if everyone wants to share, I'd love to hear from you.
I'm not nearly as far along as everyone else in the world of coding. So, Brianna, that's exactly the kind of stuff that I'm not quite ready to think about yet, but that's such a good idea and I love it. I'm still on first base, but I'm holding on for dear life. So.
Yeah, and no, don't like apologize at all. Seriously, we all like, one of the things that I would suggest too, if you want to, you can take your script, and I have videos that also in that. I think I'm up to 26 videos in the playlist, and I apologize that there's so many in there, but one of them is to use Google Drive to use the create a Google Apps script from there. So you can actually take your script, copy it into that, and dump it into the Drive folder that I shared with everyone, and just label it, limit, cap attendance at 50%, and just dump that in there, and then people can go and review that as well. So what else did you want to share? Anything else, Tally? Okay. Diane, do you want to share anything, or are you good?
Well, I was trying to do something that I don't think I can do. The first, our help desk is like generated, emails get generated back. They come to us when somebody submits a help request, and I get the email. So I was trying to see if I could like automatically respond, but I can't because it's to a no reply. You can't reply back to that email. Somewhere in the body of the email is the person's email address, so when I reply back and say I'll get back to you in a couple hours, or I'll take a look at that, I have to like copy that person's address and physically type it in. And I was trying to see how I could do it. And the first thing I did, it said try to do it just in your Google Mail and only say that you would be replying to the sender, which I'm like, well, yeah, that would make sense, like an automatic reply. Like I don't really need to do everything, but I can't do it that way because the person's name is not at the top. And so when I went into Gemini, it gave me like gobbledygook because I wasn't asking the right questions. And then I thought, I bet I can do it in my help request program that we use. We use like a LibWizard or something.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's probably the easiest way to do that. But then I started playing around with what I did last week and making it like trying to generate certificates for teachers, like the librarians, and so that they'd get automatic certificate when they come to PD, whether it's online, virtual, or in person. So.
Right, which will be really helpful for people depending on their certification, right? So so that's another great idea in terms of that. And I'm going to think about the prompts to have Gemini create a Google Apps script that looks deeper into your email, that finds certain, like if we can talk offline, but if you send me an example of the email, I might be able to think about it a little bit.
Okay.
All right, so let's jump back into the slide deck. So let me share my screen. All right, I love the ideas, and I think that they're super helpful to hear what other people are doing. So Notebook LM has been a game changer for me. So Gemini is incredible, but when I was trying to create this course, I was creating it from scratch, so I really didn't get a lot. I wanted to make sure I wasn't having expert blind spots that would be the place that people got tripped up. So I actually ended up using Notebook LM to analyze my work. And Notebook LM is I find it to be a really helpful tool to help dig into and provide research. So they call it a research assistant. And I really find it to be exactly that. And it looks like they already changed the icons today from what was there earlier, just a few minutes ago. But so this is if I go into my main dashboard, these are the actual notebooks that I've already created. So this was one for the entire PD session. This one is on Aspen assessments and using that at session 1. This is the entire learning series that I put together regarding that. So what I wanted to do was take what I was working on in Gemini and Notebook LM for session 3 and kind of have it go through and analyze all of that information for me. So there is the sources panel to the left. There's the main chat with Notebook LM, or even Gemini's built into it, right? The chat regarding the sources. And then there's the studio panel to the left that allows you to create a variety of resources based on the sources that you have. So you can ask it to create and generate a mind map for you. I love the audio overview. It is actually a 2-person podcast that gets generated automatically, and it takes all your sources and allows you to generate a podcast, and you can ask it to be a shorter podcast. The default podcast is around 18 minutes, or a longer podcast, and it could go up to I think people have generated podcasts that have been over an hour. So it can create an audio podcast for you as well. So the first place to start is adding sources. So when you click on the Add Sources button, you can upload PDFs, text documents, Markdown, audio, all kinds of supported files here. You can choose your file by going to your computer and uploading the file. You can also add Google Drive documents. It only supports a Google Doc right now and a Google Slide, so it doesn't support a spreadsheet file or another file. You can add websites directly to it as well. So I have tried to add Google spreadsheets using the link, and it won't do it. But it'll go out and access a website that's not behind a paywall or a specific login, and actually allow you to add that as well. And you can also add YouTube videos. So I just created my last YouTube video on using Google LM, so I can go into my my videos in YouTube and let me get the URL for that. So here's my URL. So if I wanted to add a YouTube video, I can paste my URL in here, hit enter, and it's going to go in and add that last video file. And then you can also click on the Discover button here, and you can say using Notebook LM to analyze my PD sessions, and submit that, and it's going to go through and it's going to show you a variety of sources that might be available for that. So you can go in and if you want to check out what that website is, you can actually click on the little icon to open up a new window, and it's going to allow you to basically see exactly what would work here. So you can see a variety of other sources that you can import them, or you can deselect them all and import one of them, and it's going to add it to the source list here. You can then also ask questions right from Gemini to say, hey, you know, what's the most important thing that I need to consider when using Gemini for Google Apps Scripts? And it's going to look at the sources and give you some feedback. And then the studio is where it already, you know, you can create a report, they're called a briefing doc, a study guide, an FAQ, or a timeline. I've already done those. And so if I wanted to, I can click on the 3 dots and I can convert one of those to an actual source document. So it can take what it created and just add it to the source documents as well. One of my favorites is the is the AI piece. So this one, I don't know if you can hear that. You probably can't, but um, you can actually. It's a great little 6-minute podcast that you could download this, which I've done. I've downloaded it and I've put it in my other documentation on my website so that you can actually hear that. And I also added it in here as a WAV file. So it's this one right here. Unfortunately, you cannot share these Notebook LM documents outside of your workspace. So, I'm the only person in my workspace, so I can't add, if I try to add Justin here, it's just not going to let me add him. It's grayed out, right? So I'm hopeful that at some point they'll create an opportunity to have a notebook that you can share as just a kind of view only option. And they're view only anyway. You can make it so that viewers can only, they can look at the full notebook, but they're not going to be able to edit it or make changes to it. But you could also share it directly with someone to, I think, give them some edit rights in there. So it's a great tool to kind of really dig in and say, so if I wanted to, see what the timeline for the resources that I gave, it's going to tell me when those resources were added, what is important about those, and then even like it's going to tell you the cast of characters. So, I have 2 test people, Jim Monty and James Monty, that I added, and it also says Gemini is a big participant here, and that practical educational pathways is important for some reason here as well. So it's really a great tool to kind of add documentation and then have it analyze what the documents are. So I'm going to stop presenting and open it up for any questions that you might have.
I love brainstorming, so I'd love to ask everybody if they have ideas. I also noticed that you can't share it with others, so I was kind of thinking of it in terms of like teacher implications for how they can support study skills or sort of like executive functioning when it comes to that, like pulling resources together, getting a study, I saw things like study guides or like having a podcast that kid could listen to as opposed to studying. But is there a possibility to develop a workaround for that because it can't be shared?
So what you can do is, let's see. So for a lot of the resources in the studio, once they're created, you can download them, right? If I click share here, again, it's not going to allow me.
You're not, you're just doing, because you're not, your screen isn't.
I'm sorry. I'm so new
No,
at
it's okay.
presenting to people that, I constantly do that. Let's see.
You all do, it's okay.
The right screen. Yeah. So you can actually go in to a lot of the resources that you have. And so if I go back to the studio, and there are some resources that, let's see, the mind maps aren't really available because they're so dynamically created. But if I convert this to a source document, and let's see. So this was a source document here. I don't think I can download these. I could copy them if I wanted to, but they don't give you the option to download them yet. But I think that that's probably, one of the things that people are going to want to get from their notebook LMs, and being able to do that you know, but right now I've used them a lot for myself to kind of analyze all of the pieces that I put together with something. But I do know that that audio file is the one that you can download, because then I have, you know, added that to, actually I can go right here. Like I have added that to this space right here. So I uploaded the WAV file. I actually added it to a video editor so that I could upload it to YouTube. So this is kind of that whole process of taking that animation, that audio file, and adding it to YouTube. Or I think I actually just added it as a WAV file in Google Drive and the shared drive. And so you could give people access to it that way as well. So let's see, I think this is it. Yeah, I didn't add it in here yet. But you could add a WAV file as a downloadable file right in here as well. So there are some limitations to it right now, and hopefully those will be things that change in the future. But you can look at other research assistants like Claude and see what those capabilities are. Yes, Rihanna, that's exactly it. So if you can share it within your district. So one, your Google admin has to go in and turn those tools on for people and allow people to use Notebook LM. And then once that's done, if you have domains and subdomains, or, you know, Google OUs and sub OUs, you can actually share those as well. So I am sure that there are ways of being able to do that within your districts as well. All right. Well, I was, let's see. So we have about a half an hour. Do you folks want to play in Google LM, or just do that on your own, and I can share the last slides for you to do the feedback form? What are you thinking? I don't want to hold people up. I know how busy people are. But it's definitely something you can play around with yourselves.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to keep messing around with Notebook LM as I continue to work with others in my district.
Absolutely. So let me just jump into the
Seems
last
pretty
slide.
intuitive. I'm so sorry, I just cut you off. It just seems pretty intuitive.
It
Now it's just kind of the
really-
sky's the limit on how we can use it.
It is super intuitive, like
Yeah.
it really is. And I really, it really does allow you to kind of build, you know, just use it in a whole lot of different ways. Reddit actually has a pretty good group that looks at Notebook LM, believe it or not.
Cool.
All right, let me share the last screen. So I really want you to know that I appreciate your feedback, and I find it super useful. You can look at today's session as the guided session 3 guided for the Google Apps PD infrastructure. And I'm going to take the link and post it in the chat. And I would really appreciate if folks kind of fill that out. And if you have any ideas for future sessions that you might want to kind of dive into, just let me know that in the additional comments at the end. And And I really do take the feedback and look at it closely to help kind of redesign whatever I'm doing. So I appreciate your honest feedback, and anything you might want to see in the future, that would be great. And if you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, that would be wonderful as well, because as I add playlists, you'll get a notification that I've added additional playlists. So I appreciate everyone's time. I know I've asked a lot of you in terms of that, but I appreciate you sticking around and digging in and playing around. And I hope you found this useful. And good luck to everyone as you start your new school year.
Right back at you. And thank you so much. I really do feel more confident with Gemini and scripts. Much, much better. I'm sure it's still going to be a bumpy road, but it is for all of us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. We're not, like, most of us aren't programmers to start, right? But we become good hackers.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you, Jim. Take care.
All right. Thanks, everyone.